CJ Stroud is an incredible player and an incredible human. Ohio State has had plenty of good quarterbacks over the last few years, starting with guys such as Troy Smith, Terrell Pryor, Braxton Miller, Cardale Jones, JT Barrett, Dwayne Haskins, and most recently, Justin Fields. Stroud is just the next guy in line, but just how good is he? Some people think he's extremely overrated, while some people think he's by far the best quarterback in college football. The truth probably lies somewhere in between, but in today's video, I'm going to introduce you to who CJ Stroud is, talk about how good he is, and if he's overrated or if the hype is justified. I'm really excited for this one, so let's just go ahead and get started. In order to understand the CJ Stroud situation, we first need to go back in time. This guy was not always a blue chip recruit, as in fact, he was always doubted. He said, quote, "My life has been like a roller coaster. It's been up and down. I've been through hell and back. I've been through so much in life. I was young, and when I was a kid, I had to grow up really, really fast." Now that Stroud is one of the top QBs in the country, he thinks back to his freshman math teacher who one day told him something that would stick with him the rest of his life. He would grab a marker on the dry erase board and wrote the number .078. That was the percentage of high school athletes who went on to play professional sports, and he basically told Stroud to hit the books because he was never going to be anything. Back in the day, his dad became his best friend, and he would teach him both how to play basketball and how to play quarterback. Stroud would start playing sports at the age of 5 years old, but unfortunately when CJ got to middle school, his dad went away to prison. Once he got to high school, he didn't even start for the Cougars until his junior year, as he had played basketball at the time, and wasn't even active as a 7-on-7 player and didn't go to camps. He did eventually start to blow up, but he did not have the kind of offers that most other quarterbacks in the class of 2020 had. He said, quote, "You can't really control opportunities, but when you get yours, you have to prove what you can do and ball out. I feel like that's what I did. I have a big saying in my life, which is control the controllables. I can't really control what a school thinks about me. I can only prove what I can do on the field. That's something I can control. I knew if I took care of business on the field, everything else would take care of itself." Eventually, he was good enough to get one of those coveted spots to the Elite 11 quarterback camp, and he'd go on to the final round. He was one of the lowest ranked quarterbacks to be invited to the event, but it was quickly boosted by each of the recruiting sites after he stole the show. He was one of the most impressive players throughout the week, and him and Bryce Young were on the same 7-on-7 team, but it was Stroud that led the team to a title in the championship game, earning him the MVP honors of the entire Elite 11 camp. This was insane, and now his recruitment was going to skyrocket, as after that, schools began to want him. He had passed for 2,433 yards and 19 touchdowns as a junior, but he would improve on that number. Eventually, when it was all said and done, in his 2 years as a starting quarterback, he threw for 6,221 yards, 66 touchdowns, and he completed 64% of his passes. He ended up being named to the All-American game, and his coach had this to say, quote, "CJ earned this spot. He worked and busted his tail off, he watches film, and he knows the offense." So when it came to recruiting, where was Stroud going to go? Well, he decided to choose the Ohio State Buckeyes over the likes of Oregon, Georgia, USC, Michigan, and Baylor. On ESPNU, Stroud had this to say, quote, "Ohio State was definitely the best choice for me. I just feel like I'm really close with Coach Day and Coach Yurkich. Those guys are doing great things." Ryan Day had this to say about Stroud's ability. "Combining his catchable and accurate pass with his competitive fire, I think he's going to put the offense in good position every single play and be successful on that play. He's going to be prepared to go, and he's going to be a star." Not only was he super high on him, but he also thought he could be a combination of two Buckeye legends. He said he could be a mix of Justin Fields and Dwayne Haskins, and Stroud had this to say in response, quote, "I'm not as fast as Justin, and I'm not as strong as Justin, but I feel like I can get to that. Eventually, I'll be able to get on that level, and eventually, I'll be able to throw like Dwayne Haskins did. But right now, I just want to be better." According to the 24/7 Sports Composite, Stroud was ranked as a 4-star recruit, the number 2 pro-style quarterback, and the 42nd best player in the class of 2020. Stroud would arrive in 2020 as the backup to Fields, and he was also alongside another guy by the name of Jack Miller. He was also a big-time recruit, but after he didn't play, he transferred to Florida, where he will compete with Anthony Richardson for the starting job this year. But as we take a look at his 2021 season, he went off. In week 1 against Minnesota, he threw for 294 yards and 4 touchdowns as they went on the road and won a thrilling game. In week 2, Stroud was extremely impressive, but they lost. Number 12, Oregon came to town, and no one really gave the Ducks a chance, but despite 484 yards and 3 touchdowns from Stroud, he could not make a play at the end of the game to try and tie it, and Oregon won 35-28, hurting the Buckeyes' playoff hopes early on. In week 3, he'd barely get to play against Tulsa, as that game was over pretty quickly, And then against Rutgers, he threw for 330 yards and 5 touchdowns as they destroyed the Rutgers Scarlet Knights on the road. This is when he really started to heat up, as against Maryland the following week, he threw for 406 yards and 5 touchdowns, and then in a road victory over Indiana, he threw for 266 yards and 4 scores. He hadn't thrown an interception in 3 straight games, and that would continue in a massive matchup against Penn State. The number 20 Nittany Lions came to town for a nationally broadcasted game, and Stroud did enough to win as he threw for 305 yards and a score and a 33-24 victory. After that, they'd kind of have a scare, as despite passing for 400 yards, Stroud would throw 2 interceptions, and they survived the scare on the road against Nebraska. The following week, number 19 Purdue would come to town, and the Boilermakers had already beaten 2 top 5 teams, and some wondered if they could do it again. If you remember, back in 2018, Purdue kicked the crap out of Ohio State at home, and Stroud definitely put revenge on him. In that game, he threw for 361 yards and 5 touchdowns, and completed 82% of his passes in a 59-31 drubbing. But the next 3 games would determine CJ Stroud's legacy for his first year as a starter, and would put him on the map. In what was a huge Big Ten East showdown against number 7 Michigan State, Stroud went off. His best game in the regular season, as he threw for 432 yards and 6 touchdowns, as they killed Michigan State 56-7, put the Spartan hype to rest. After that, though, he'd play in his first game against Michigan. This game ended up becoming one of the best games of the 2021 college football season, but Stroud could not get the job done. Despite throwing for nearly 400 yards and 2 touchdowns, Michigan ended up winning 42-27, and it seems Stroud could never get comfortable, and the Buckeyes just couldn't really get anything going. They lost this game, and this ended up getting Michigan to the Big Ten championship in the college football playoff, and it definitely annoyed the crap out of Stroud. That's why he decided to go off for his best game of his career in the Rose Bowl. They were matched up against the number 11 Utah Utes, who were one of the hottest teams in the country. In what was one of the best Rose Bowl games ever, Stroud decided he was going to make a statement. He threw for 573 yards and 6 touchdowns, and he helped Jackson Smith-Njigba make history as a receiver in a bowl game. Not only did they win the Rose Bowl, but he finished the season on a high note. He finished with 4,435 yards, which was best for 5th in the nation, 44 touchdowns, which was 3rd in the nation, and he had the highest QBR of 91.6. Because of that, he was a top 5 Heisman finisher, and many people are wondering just how good he could be in 2022. As of right now, the top 2 quarterbacks coming back next year will be CJ Stroud and Bryce Young, and it's kind of anyone's pick as to who will be better. If I had to pick one or the other, I'd honestly go with Stroud, but others will very much disagree with that take. In terms of the 2023 NFL Draft, Todd McShay is on my side, as he said he would take Stroud over Young. That's not taking anything away from Young's talent, but I just like Stroud's game a little bit more. The biggest question mark for Stroud will be who steps up at wide receiver, but he already has the top returning receiver in the country in Jackson Smith-Njigba, and there's plenty of 5-star talent who is ready to step up. I have no worries about the Ohio State offense, but if the defense can be good enough, this team could be special. The Week 1 game against Notre Dame will be huge, and then obviously games against Penn State and Michigan and Wisconsin will be huge, but Stroud has an opportunity to put up huge numbers, win big games, and honestly bring home the Heisman Trophy. I also project the Buckeyes to go undefeated, win the Big Ten championship, and I think he will win a national title, win the Heisman, and become the number 1 overall pick. Yeah, some would say that's a bold statement, but that is how much I like Stroud, and I think this guy will go down in college football history. I could be wrong though. I definitely disagree with the people who think he's overrated, and he's going to put everything to rest and put up numbers this fall. Just watch. But what do I know? This is just my take. Let me know what you think down below. Is CJ Stroud the best quarterback in college football? Is he overrated? And how's Ohio State going to do this year? Be sure to let me know down below. Let me know what player or topic I should cover next, and be sure to check out all my other videos on the end screen. Hope to see you guys again soon, but until next time, peace.